Live from the NZME newsroom in central Auckland, we're with mayoral candidates Phil Goff and John Tamahere debating the future of transport, housing and all the city's big issues. Brought to you by the New Zealand Herald and News Talk ZB, this is the 2019 Auckland mayoral debate. Welcome to the New Zealand Herald News Talk ZB Auckland mayoral debate, live from the NZME newsroom in Auckland. I'm Heather du Plessis-Allen and I'm joined tonight by the top mayoral contenders Phil Goff and John Tamahere. In the next hour we'll be talking about the big issues facing New Zealand's largest city, and I'll ask these two why they think they're the guys who can solve them. Along the way, we'll also be asking some of your questions, so you can email them through. The email address is mayoraldebate@nzme.co.nz, and you can see that address scrolling along the bottom of your screen as well. After the debate, I'll be joined by a panel of senior Herald journalists, Simon Wilson and Bernard Orsman. Let's get into the debate now. Thank you two for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, what I want to do is I want to basically get you started with a 30-second elevator pitch, and because you're the incumbent, Phil, you get to go first. So 30 seconds why you think you should get the job again.
Yeah, well, there are key challenges facing the city, and I've got the plans that will help resolve that, and we've made real progress towards them. Getting the investment into transport, an extra 50%, another $9 billion. Getting the rate of house building up and dealing with homelessness, cleaning up our environment 20 years ahead of time to stop the waste going into the harbours and onto the beaches, and saving money, doing things efficiently, bringing integrity, trust, reliability to this job of mayor.
Thanks very much. And within time,
I beat it.
It's like you practiced it. JT, 30 seconds. You can
I don't understand that city, but the one we're living in at the moment is broken, and I intend to fix it. Broken in terms of homelessness, and that will be fixed within 18 months in the CBD. Broken in terms of budget blowouts. Broken in terms of significant rate gouging, stealth as well as petrol tax. Broken in regard to huge congestion problems. Broken in regard to a lack of solutions when we're desperately crying out for them, particularly in infrastructure issues and particularly around transport. So, well,
30 seconds is up,
thanks.
JT. You might want to practice that one a little bit.
Yeah, and none of it was true.
Now, okay, before we get into it, I want to get to know the pair of you a little bit. Phil, you've been a mayor now for one term. Has it been harder than you thought it would be?
It's certainly demanding. Yeah, I'd probably put in a 12 to 15 hour day on a lot of days. It's challenging, and I enjoy a challenge. My wife once told the media he needs a challenge, it makes him easier to live with, and that's probably true. But it's at least as tough as being a cabinet minister, and I did that for 15 years. Not quite as tough as being leader of the opposition.
Have you found it hard to get the things done that you want to get done? Because there are quite a few projects that are just not getting off the ground just yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like the serenity prayer. You have the serenity to accept the things you cannot change, the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You're fighting central government for more resources. You're sometimes fighting your own bureaucrats because they've got a different idea from what you want to do for the city. And you don't have any lines of organisational discipline within the council. You've got 21 people around the council table, including the mayor, and every one of them's an individual with their own views, and they don't necessarily take to being shepherding. Having said that, I've got through all the key things that I wanted to get through and got remarkable support for my budgets, 75, 80% support for my budgets, and that's the important part of being mayor.
Okay, JT, do you make stuff up?
Give me an example.
$2 billion for your super bridge. There's no way it's going to cost
No, I
that
said I said it was back of the envelope, 2 to 4. But here's the issue. The issue is he's been around for 3 years with hundreds of millions of dollars advice, not come up with one solution.
Not true.
At least I've got a solution on the table, and the beauty about that is it's triggered a wonderful conversation because the people on the North Shore going up to Warkworth, Wellsford desperately need it. That is a choke point. You know it. I know it. Every Aucklander knows it, but Goff. So we've now got a solution on the table being discussed. At least if you've got the conversation going, we'll get something done within the next 3 years in terms of a certain way forward, rather than kicking it out to 2030 like the present incumbent.
Yeah, but JT, do you think people believe it? I mean, you come up with ideas and some of them are great, but it's not believable that you can get it done or that it's going to cost what you say it's going to cost.
Well, that's up to the voters rather than you. Okay, and what will happen, and you'll notice it, is that there is a sea shift going. Momentum is coming in. And I guarantee you that there will be more votes in my bank than his on the 13th of October.
Okay.
We'll see about that. But the answer to your question is unfundable, undeliverable and unworkable. All three of those things, and everybody in the transport field will tell you that. Don't just take it from me as a politician.
No, the ones in the
take it from the key people that know what they're talking about.
The ones in the transport field that have backed him up have got their snouts in the trough. the reality is you've got to come up with solutions. Of course there's pushback, but you've got to have some. He has none. 2030, he reckons he might get the shore sorted out. I've delivered the most significant policy on transport for the city, and I'm not the incumbent with all the resources.
Yeah, I worry it's a little bit like Donald Trump's wall, though. Great idea. Somebody's going to have to pay for it.
Mexico will
Listen,
pay for it, yeah.
Phil, have you alienated your councillors?
No. On just about every measure that I've taken through council, I've succeeded in getting the policy proposals.
Yeah,
that
but some of them are
That's
not
not
very
true.
happy with
No,
you,
well,
are
no,
they?
it is true.
Not true.
You keep saying things aren't true, but actually
Not
look at the
true.
record, and the record will tell you what the truth is, John. No, look,
You'll vote it
like any
down.
group
Tell
of-
us about your
like any group
leadership
of-
style. Tell us
Yeah,
about your
okay.
leadership style, because what
Yeah.
we're hearing is that you make decisions by yourself and you do not consult with the people around you.
That's simply totally inaccurate. If that were true, I wouldn't have got near unanimous support for the key measure that I passed this term, which was the 10-year budget. And overwhelmingly, those councillors from different backgrounds, different persuasions, different views, came together and they backed what I put forward. And that's true of the two other budgets that I've put forward as well. If you look at the track record, just about everything, with one minor exception, that I've promoted, I've got passed by my colleagues around council. And my style is not dictatorial, it's collaborative.
JT is so
and, you can
JT is
just
so
talk to
keen
some of
to
those
get some
people.
word in here. He's actually humming.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
I always put him in sleep. Look, we've got to have people that are actually going to do and achieve things, right? Rather than seek a review. If he's got a problem, I'll seek a review about the council-controlled organisations. 75% of the business in the city is run by them. He's going to seek a review. What has he been doing for 3 years?
It's not always a bad
And
idea,
then-
JT,
well,
to
what-
get some external
but
advice.
we
isn't it?
already know they're out of control.
I want to ask you a question. Just a revenge
sure.
campaign. Why are you running for mayor? Do you want to get revenge on the council?
Yeah, well, probably some of them, but
Who do you want to get revenge on? Let's get the
That's a
list
great
right
motive.
now.
these fools.
That's a great motive for public
I'll tell you
service.
what,
Yeah.
these fools running Auckland Transport Agency, go to my website, jtformayor.co.nz, and you'll see his design champion at 2 conferences telling other people, other than Aucklanders, that they're going to stop left-hand turns, change phasing to frustrate motorists, go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, put jutta bars in and everything else. Then he goes on to say in Cape Town that the mayor's got his back. When we go out on consultation processes, we don't care what the people say or what shopkeepers say because they don't know what they're talking about. Now that's the arrogance of these bureaucrats, and it comes from the top, Phil.
And let's get down to Tintex. All of that's rubbish. What we've
Go to
set
my
out
website.
to do, we have actually delivered. And the first thing that I had to deliver was to overcome years of underinvestment in infrastructure. What we've done in transport is get another $9 billion into transport. That means we can do things like extending the Northern Busway. We've started the new Eastern Busway. Next month we'll be starting the Puanui Station and the connection to the
I mean,
airport.
let's talk
I can
about-
run you through a
Phil,
long
you've
list
taken us there.
of what we've done, and it's bigger investment and bigger progress than we've ever seen in the
Right,
city.
let's talk about transport because you've
Yep.
taken us there and we have got a
Right.
long list of questions from
Yep.
people who want to know what you've got to say. You just said that you've delivered a lot of things, right?
Yep.
There are some things you haven't delivered.
Well, I've delivered everything I've promised, actually.
Electrification to Pukekohe,
Yes, that will be delivered probably starting next year.
probably starting next year. You don't have an assurance on that.
Look, it's very clear. It's set in the Auckland Transport Alignment Project. I've got agreement from the Minister of Transport that it should be as a priority in our 10-year program, and I believe that we'll start that next year.
And when are we going to get the East-West link?
The East-West link is something that government is entirely funding. If I don't fund it, I don't control it. They've said that 1.8
Yes, but
billion.
you can
No, hang
advocate
let
on
me finish
behalf
this.
of the city.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but why I
Just
won't
not
advocate
interested.
for the original design, that was going to cost $327 million a kilometre, and it wasn't going to solve the problems that we needed. And it wasn't as important as getting some of the changes that we're now bringing in public
Look,
transport.
here's the
Let me
difference.
tell you the key No, I'll just make one point about this. One key
had a
achievement.
good run.
We hit 100 million passenger trips a year on public transport months and months ahead of time. And we've got the fastest rate of conversion from private transport to public transport.
I'm going to come back to
other
public
than
transport. I'm
two
not
other
finished
cities.
with public transport.
Okay,
Yes,
JT,
nonsense.
do it.
JT, your two big things on transport are what? Sack the AT board, build a super bridge, neither of which you
No,
can do
no.
without central government permission.
Yeah, but we all get that. But
How
I'm-
are you gonna
No, no,
get
I'm
that?
standing for Mayor of Auckland. I'm not a puppet to Wellington like this bloke. So what we've got to do is usher in a new era of politics in Auckland, and that's why Christine Fletcher's with me, right? It's not about left and right, and it's not about National and Labour anymore. The new narrative and the new era is focusing on the premium city of this country, and we've got to have advocates that not just love it but champion it and don't sell out when they go down to Wellington.
Okay, so
Yeah, let's
I
get
don't
one thing right
believe.
about that. He says that he wants to sack the board. Every member of that board was supported for appointment by his running mate. Every member.
No, hang on.
Every
He
member,
sacked-
John.
He sacked
every
my running.
member.
He sacked my running mate. He sacked Mike Lee, two of the most institutionalised memory
It's
people in
institutionalised,
regard
might be right.
regard to transport specialty. And he kicked the only people that could protect the citizens of the city out of Auckland Transport.
Yeah.
Then he goes and appoints his mate Michael Cullen, right? An alien from down the line somewhere. I mean, no,
A different planet, apparently.
no, you got to have. No, you gotta have
JT,
decent
I need
people.
to ask you this question. Light rail to the airport, do you support it, yes or no?
I support part of the light rail system to the airport.
Phil, light rail to the
Yeah,
airport,
yeah,
yes or no? You support it?
absolutely, and we'll have a heavy
Paul's got
link-
question,
heavy transport
Paul's
link
got a
too.
question which, I tell you what, I'd love to know the answer to. Can you please tell us, Phil, at least one group of Aucklanders who have said they want the slow tram to the airport?
Oh yeah, all of the reports.
Apart from Simon Wilson, you're not allowed to name check him.
All of the reports. Simon's often right on these things.
Oh, I bet you think
No, he's working
all
for
of-
he's
all of
working
the-
for Gough.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think that is strictly
you would say that.
very
Let's
naughty
focus
to
on the
say.
question. No, we've done different studies. Why do we need light rail? It's actually not to the airport as much as on the routes that we already have bus congestion. If you take Dominion Road or Simon Street, you know both of those really well, and I know them well. They went to my electorate. We get 146 buses an hour at peak hour. We cannot fit any more buses on that road. We've moved from single storey to double decker buses, and we know that we're going to get bus gridlock until we can get a more efficient way of moving people. I've looked around the world, I've done the studies, so is Auckland Transport, so is the NZTA. Light rail is the most effective way of moving people
We'll just ask you
quickly.
the question again.
Yeah.
Which group of Aucklanders have told you they want it?
Overwhelmingly
Apart from
supported.
Jacinda Ardern.
No, overwhelmingly supported. You take my old electorate of Mount Roskill, people say, we love the bus service, but it's getting packed, we can't move, we need a better way of getting into town. And when you add another 12,000 homes in Mount Roskill, which we're intending to do, how are those people going to get into town unless you've got a faster and more effective form of transport?
JT, you say you want to scrap the regional fuel tax, right?
Yeah.
We've got to come to the party with some of the funding for these roads. So how are you going to fund it if you're not funding it through that tax?
No, well, here's the problem. When you get a guy that goes down to Wellington, cuts a deal at 11.5 cents a litre on Aucklanders, brings it back and applies it. In terms of the 8 taxes in Auckland,
I don't think you're answering the question, John.
50% of taxes have been levied by him on Aucklanders.
How are you
So we've
gonna
got
fill the
to gouge.
$4.3 billion
Here-
gap?
here's
That's
the-
what I want to know.
Here's the issue.
$4.3 billion
Here's the
comes
issue.
out of your budget. Where do you find it?
I'll tell you exactly.
Okay,
I won't
I'm
be.
waiting.
I won't be a puppet like you are to Wellington. You've got to be a mayor for Auckland, Phil, and you've got to stand up to central government.
You can
To get
repeat
the
that
mandate.
abuse all you
All I
like,
want
but none
is
of
a
it makes it
mandate from
correct.
Aucklanders
Yeah.
to get on that plane with Christine Fletcher, head down to Wellington, and say there's 1.7 million voters up here, or close to 1.1 million anyway. Okay, we've got an election next year, and we want this discriminatory tax taken off. If this tax applied to every other city, I get it. He got it levied on ours only, and it's discriminatory, and Aucklanders shouldn't be triple taxed.
I love the fact he's going to go down with Christine Fletcher.
You asked the question.
Christine Fletcher
you
said
asked
to
the
me in
question-
front of everybody else,
You asked the question.
she's always pushed for the regional fuel tax. It was the best thing that could happen to Auckland. She has the opposite view from you, apparently.
You
Is
asked-
that correct?
You asked the question
Yes.
about where's the money coming
Yeah.
from, the central government balance sheet.
Okay, so you're going to make them pay for everything. Well, I'm going to come back to that.
No, everything.
Mexico will build the
no,
wall.
not
Public
everything.
transport.
Yeah.
Public
Yeah.
transport.
Yeah.
Why are you so keen on public transport? We don't even have 5% of the city using public transport.
Because if you go to
You're
any,
hardly gonna
because-
decongest the
because if you go
roads.
to any big city in the world, you won't find a single city that thinks the way of dealing with congestion is to build bigger and wider motorways. in any big city, the effective way of moving people around the city has to be public transport. You've lived in
But
New
you
York,
haven't
you've lived
got-
in
but you
London.
haven't
You
got
know that
buy-in
people
from
don't travel by.
Aucklanders.
No, I disagree with
You're
that.
in dream
5%
world.
says you
I
haven't
said
got buy-in.
before that the fastest rate of movement from private transport to public transport outside of 2 other cities, we're third in the world at achieving that rate. We've got 100 million passenger trips a year as of June of this year where people are using public transport.
Very quick question for you, Phil. Jackie wants to know where the money from the fuel tax has gone.
Yeah, it's all set out.
Is it sitting
and
in a bank
it's all-
account
all the-
somewhere?
No, it's being spent right now.
I'll tell you where it is.
I'll tell you. No, you don't know.
It's a
and you
billion
get it
dollar- it's
wrong.
gone on this billion dollar blowout,
First
right?
of all,
It's the
it's
truth.
going to fund the Eastern Busway. There's several $100 million going into that. Secondly, it's going into some safety factors. We had a 78% increase in deaths and serious injuries on our roads in Auckland over 3 years. Do we need to do something about that?
Okay.
Of course we do. It's going into the Puanui station. It's going into creating walkways and cycleways. It's going in to help fund Mill Road and Penlink when we get those off the ground.
JT,
all of those things
do
that
you
set
like
out in the
cycleways?
documents.
I've got no problem with cycleway.
No problem with
Yeah, but we've got to
cycleways.
sequence everything. This guy has left Auckland Transport Agency out to make war on anyone in a vehicle, a motor vehicle. Now, I've indicated that. Go to my website, jtfamir.co.nz.
We get it. We get
The
it.
war is not, the war is not on motor cars. The war is on congestion.
No,
and the war is
it
on
isn't.
pollution.
No, if we
Let's
had,
get it absolutely right.
If we had public transport to migrate to, if we had park and rides, and I've announced we were 30 could be in Auckland today with private-public partnerships, he won't have private-public partnerships.
Yeah.
Not
No,
one.
that's not
he
true.
won't have
That's not
anything
true.
like that.
That's
JT,
not true.
I
In fact,
wanna-
Penlink will
Yeah,
probably
there
be
you
a
go.
public-private partnership.
Yes.
But hey, I come back to your question. You can't do anything unless you've got the money. He said, we're not going to put any money into it, but somehow the central government that is currently funding us proportionately to our population, but not to our growth, central government will pay for it. He got the answer today. You'd get the same answer off a National Minister of Transport. They'd tell you to sod off because
See,
the people in Gisborne, Marsden and Invercargill, Timaru aren't going to subsidise our transport.
No, this is the big issue in this Mayoralty, okay? You've got a guy that thinks he's still a cabinet minister responsible to Wellington rather than a mayor for
Okay,
Auckland.
no, okay,
that's
let's
the
talk
truth.
about the central
At least I've
government
succeeded as a
relationship.
cabinet
Let's-
minister,
let's-
John.
Stop wrangling on
Let's
about
talk about
all
the central
wa-
government relationship, and I want to start with you on this one, JT. You say you're going to go down there, you're going to get them to do all these things, pay for the bridge, pay for the roads, all of this stuff. How are you going to do it? These guys don't even like you.
Oh yeah, but look, I'm used to that. Look,
I mean, is it because essentially you're not
look,
going to be able to
you're putting the cart
sweet
before
talk them.
you're putting
You're going to
the-
have to bully them into
You're
it.
putting the cart before the horse, right? The cart before the horse is this: Aucklanders give me the mandate to actually be a champion for Auckland rather than a puppet to Wellington. Once that decision is made, we're into an election year.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, that they will all focus their minds on an election year of what Auckland's worth is to gain the Treasury benches. And I'm going to leave it there because at this particular point in time, he wouldn't have the guts to front them because he's one of them. I'm not anymore.
Okay, but JT, I want
Yeah,
to talk
that-
about
that's
you
rubbish.
because I'm going to
That's
come
rubbish.
to you.
I should
JT,
actually come back on
you
that.
will. I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about this because you've taken an approach of I would say it's quite confrontational with central government setting up the homelessness line 0800 to Cinder.
Yep.
You're going to need them to give you cash to make you look
Well,
good as a mayor.
no,
Why would they want
No,
to?
no, because the present mayor has surrendered everything. On the 0800...
I'm talking about you.
On the 0800 Jacinda number, okay, homelessness is not a ratepayers issue, and he's voted millions of dollars of our ratepayer to subsidise
I'm
mates in
asking
Wellington.
you, JT, how you're going to
Just
get
answer
them
one
to
of the
give
questions.
you
Just
money.
one of them. Please give us one answer.
Oh, you happy?
Yeah, no,
You're
no.
making this hard for me if you do that,
I'll
you
give you
know
the
that.
No, no,
answer.
Heather,
JT.
I'll give the
no,
answer.
no,
You know
no,
it's
No,
really
I
good.
want to hear from
Okay,
JT.
yeah, no,
JT,
I'd
I
like
want
to
to
hear the
hear from
answer
you.
too.
How
Yeah.
are you going to
How are
get
you gonna
them
do it?
to
Yeah.
cough up cash for you?
Well, here's a simple thing. I will achieve it where he would never. And here's the other thing. At least, at least we've got a game on with someone that'll go down and bang the table.
Okay.
He surrenders.
Hey, just Pixie dust. He won't deliver. He knows he can't deliver. And I know, and you know as an ex-gallery journalist, that when you go down and you yell and you bang the table, you get nowhere.
It's
When
a
I'll
new
tell you
era.
what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
It's a new
Phil.
when you go down,
I'm seeing
when you go down and you
Labour
present
mayors-
a rational decision.
No, I'm seeing Labour mayors around this country going soft on projects to make their central government mates happy.
Yeah.
Are
No, he's a
you doing
sellout.
that?
No, I'm
Is
not
that
doing
why?
that.
Is that why some of the
No.
projects
You're
are
a
not
sellout,
getting
Phil.
off the
No,
ground?
look, just listen to what I said
You're a
before.
sellout, Phil.
I got the highest ever increase in investment from central government in the history of this city in the long-term plan for transport. the highest level, they gave us another $9 billion. I took the government to the very edge of what they thought they could afford to do, and I did it because I put up a sensible case that made sense. I demonstrated there was support for it, and I got the government's concurrence to do it. $9 billion.
Here's the problem.
He is talking
60%. Here's the
He will
problem.
not deliver.
Here's
He's
the problem.
never delivered. He didn't
60%,
deliver as a cabinet
60%
minister. He didn't
of the
deliver when he
money-
was on council.
60%,
I have delivered.
60% of the money is unallocated. Because
That's not true.
No, because
You just make it up, John.
Because
you just keep making it up. None of it's true.
Because he sold out to Wellington. Now, what you've got to do is put a plan up that is an Auckland priority, not a Wellington one. And I've done that in terms of the New Zealand Transport Agency funding. Now, there's, as I said, 60% unallocated because he hasn't put enough programs up, or he has left it to Wellington to determine Auckland's priorities. Now, you can't do that. There's a new era that needs to come into our politics. I opened with that, and you're going to see it heralded in.
Right, a reply.
And what everything that John has said, as much of what he says, is simply factually incorrect. And you can prove that. He makes it up as he goes along. He is promising what he knows he cannot deliver and doesn't have the power to deliver, and I have delivered more than I promised. And that's the difference
Like
between
what?
the two of us.
Like what?
Like the $9 billion that
no,
we've got into
where
that.
are our
Like the
programs?
record level of housing that we're building
No,
at the moment.
cut
Like
it
the
out.
1,000 homeless people that we have got off the street and into permanent homes.
Oh, you're
like the
right.
cleaning up of our harbours 20 years ahead of when they were going to be cleaned up. Like the savings of $1 billion in efficiency
This is
and
a
value
beautiful-
for money.
this is a beautiful city.
This is not just
Everyone-
making it up.
no,
This
everyone-
is stuff that's in the
everyone
budget
listening-
that can be proven and that we have actually delivered.
Everyone-
He has never delivered
Everyone
as a
listening-
cabinet minister
everyone listening.
or as a member of this
Now,
council.
everyone listening would think
You
that
failed
we,
in both
that we
roles,
live,
John.
Everyone,
You failed in both roles.
everyone,
And now you're telling us,
everyone-
just trust me, I know what I'm doing. And nobody does trust me.
Everyone- go.
everyone he gets excited. Now you got a dicky tick and you settle down. Look, here's the thing.
Nothing wrong with
Here's the
my
thing.
heart. At least I've got a heart,
here's,
mate.
here's the thing. Okay, if everything was as great as he says, okay, there would be no dissatisfaction in the city. We'd all be happy, and it's
And
bank and
people
Phil.
love living in
John.
this city. They're proud of living in this city.
John, are you sure
and they
you
know
want
it
to
won't
do
be
this
done
job?
overnight.
Phil's had a heart attack. Len Brown before him had a heart attack.
Goes with
It's
the job,
hard work.
apparently.
Oh well,
up for it?
Yeah, but I'm a lot fitter than these two. I mean,
What exercise do you do?
oh well, I run around after my daughter's dog because she doesn't take it for walks. I do all sorts of other things in terms of exercise.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Phil? Do you do exercise?
Yeah. I've got a 20-acre block of land, so I run around after sheep, actually, and a granddaughter that's almost 3 years old. And
You sound like an Australian, right?
She's
Chasing sheep.
not for the reason that you might, John.
I've got to ask you this to get a sense
Yeah,
of
no,
you
look,
and your use
look,
of-
just because John raised it, I need, it's under the belt hit. I did a treadmill test at the hospital the other day. They said it's absolutely bloody perfect.
Oh, no, you
And
look-
that's
you
good.
look-
And that's good.
No,
And,
you look great,
You're
Phil.
healthy.
You just
Yeah,
get excited. You just get too excited.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm worried about.
What's
Because
your
the
I want-
heart is working so
Too
well.
excited, you're too
Phil,
excited.
I want to know
Yeah.
about your use of the city, the way that you enjoy this place. What's your favourite place to eat?
My favourite place to eat, I like it down at the Wynyard Quarter. There's some fantastic restaurants. Badawi is one of them down there. I love Japanese restaurants, and I go to one in Papakura. They're called Aizu. The great thing about Auckland, the city that I grew up in that used to give you fish and chips or chicken chow mein, now provides the whole diversity of the world in our cuisine. That's one of the things that makes our city a great place to live. I love the diversity, and I'm determined as mayor to make this city totally inclusive. We stand out against the sort of racism that we see in some quarters, and we include everybody. And when we include everybody, that means that when we have staff, I give them the living wage. Our staff from next week will all
Can
get
I
the
have a
living
comment on
wage.
that?
How did we go from where you eat to the living wage?
Yeah, because I'm
John,
saying what a
No,
great
I-
city it is.
John, I have
and
a
an
question for
inclusive
you,
city.
right?
Yeah.
So here
Yeah.
we go. I'm giving you Friday night off. You could do anything you want to in the city with your wife. Where would you go?
Etu's in Te Atatu North, Te Atatu Peninsula. I like my hood out west, and we all...
Etu's a union, isn't it?
No, it's a restaurant actually in Te Atatu.
Okay.
Yeah. But see, I answered
union
that.
too.
I answered that
Yeah.
in 20 seconds. He gave you a 5-minute ramble.
Politicians are.
I've got more to say that's true than you have, John.
So let's talk about the port, what you want to do there. You
Yeah.
want to barge cars off there
Yeah.
instead of trucking them off. How much time is this realistically going to save, having those cars sitting on the wall?
Well, if you
It's a
talk
joke.
to, if you talk, it's not a joke. If you talk to PTS, which is a company that takes 80% of the imported used cars at the moment from the wharf, they say that they can get the cars off the wharf much quicker. Can they barge it up to Highbrook? Of course they can, because we used to barge everything
How
up
much
to the power
quicker is
station.
much quicker?
Well,
Is it
at
still
the
gonna be
moment
there
it
for
takes. At the
days?
moment it takes 2.5 days. They think they can fit up 250 cars on a barge. That would normally you've got 5 or 6 cars on a road freighter. We see the bottom of town congested with road car freighters that clog the motorway, that clog the bottom of town, and if we can get them up by sea without adding to the congestion in town, and we can get them off the wharf quicker, that makes a lot of sense. When I pushed that idea with the chief executive of the ports, he has agreed to it. He's agreed to do all the work. He thinks it's got a hell of a lot of promise, and we can free that wharf up for other uses, including potentially the cruise liners on Bledisloe.
Okay, so John, you want to sell the port? Is that still your policy?
I announced that earlier this year.
Who's going to buy the port when we don't even know what the central government wants to do with it?
Yeah.
Well, see, that's
Good question.
we keep coming back to the same issue. You can't sell out all the time. See, Wellington is going to have to be sorted in legislative
What would
reset
you
and
say if
refresh.
they said, right, we want to move the thing to Tauranga? You'd go, no.
No, I wouldn't.
You put your foot down over what they
No, I
want? though?
wouldn't. But it would have to be linked in terms of a whole range of infrastructure to Auckland to service us. And ultimately, the port will move because, as in all ports in all great cities, they are historically in the wrong place, a la the Opera House in Sydney. So it is going to move. So what I've got to do is get the city ready to future-proof itself. There's 77 hectares of land down there. You wouldn't know it. You're locked out of it.
What would you like to do with the land?
Well, what will happen is that ultimately over time, when the port exits, there will be everything from esplanades, all sorts of opportunities, an event centre as well as a major creative arts centre down on our harbour. Now, it's one of the most spectacular harbours in the world at the moment, but he's allowed a 5-storey car park for used cars.
What would you like to do with that land?
The first thing, it is 77 hectares, and when we find an alternative place for the port, it will move. That will take some time because it costs billions of dollars in infrastructure to wherever you're going to create the place for it. What would I like to do with it? First of all, we will keep the land. We'll develop it in the same way that we've developed Wynyard Quarter, and I'm currently developing Wynyard Point. You just watch how Wynyard Point is changing now with the America's Cup. We're going to have a headland park, and we're going to have a linear park down the side, recreate a marine precinct. On the Bledisloe area, what you can do there is, first of all, you give the public access to the water edge again. That's really critical. You make it a recreational area. That's important, just in the same way that the Wynyard Quarter is and the Viaduct Basin. But you fund all the development you want by long-term leases on high-quality commercial premises, and it might be restaurants, it might be bars, it might be other commercial enterprises,
Blah,
residences.
blah,
You
blah.
bring life to that area. There's 77 hectares. It's a really big area, but it can pay for itself.
I want to ask you a question, John,
Yeah.
then. Okay, because you're blah-blahing over here with Phil.
Well, I don't understand.
How much are you going to raise rates by?
Well, that's an interesting question, and you'll know that next week.
Well, I can
Tell
tell
us
you.
now.
I can tell you right now. He's going to raise water rates by $200 to $300 a year for
No, you
every
asked me.
household in Auckland.
No, you asked me.
and that's the equivalent
No,
of a
hang on.
12% rate
Oh,
rise.
oh, here's my response.
And that's
to
true.
him.
Do you deny it's going to cost $200 or $300 a week?
Absolutely, I
a
do.
year?
Absolutely, I do.
Well, talk to Watercare.
Because your numbers.
They'll tell you. You talk to Watercare.
Look,
Talk to any expert on it.
do you mind if I have a say here?
You may. You're
Okay,
more than welcome.
thank you. Okay, because Phil's getting his jipper up and he's just getting in the way.
Phil is talking about the partial privatisation of Watercare
Yeah,
that you
that's
want
right.
to do. You're
That's
still
right.
keen on
Yeah,
that, right?
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
How much is that going to push water bills up?
No, he's maxed out our credit card
Hey, how
3
much-
times.
you had a question. Answer the
265. No, I am. 265%. If you will you behave yourself, you fool. Now, so he's maxed out the credit card, right? 265%. So when you've got debt hanging around
Yeah.
his throat, he's then brought in petrol tax, the environment tax, all these stealth taxes that you brought in. So the problem we've got in the city is that the citizens are being gouged out by this guy who only knows how to tax and spend. We're sick and tired of being used as his ATM.
This is a fair point to make, isn't it, Phil? You know, you've managed
Yeah.
to keep the rates low.
Yep,
And
the
that
lowest
was,
in the country.
Yep, that
Stealth
was
tax.
your
The
lowest in the
promise. That
country.
was your promise.
Okay,
And congratulations.
shall I-
I'm not finished.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
John makes a good point.
No, he
You've
doesn't.
brought you have brought in all these levies
Yeah.
that basically
Okay.
mean you don't have to raise rates.
No, let's have a look at it. the environment tax and the water quality tax, the targeted rates, we went out and consulted. The biggest ever consultation
Here it is,
exercise
mate.
in the history of the council.
tax bill.
And we also
Tax bill.
we actually also went to the public by way of Colmar Brunton to get a cross section.
Colmar
3-1, 3-1 Aucklanders in the submissions and in the polling said to us, we don't mind paying a couple of bucks a week, but get on and clean up our beaches. Get on and protect our environment.
What rate of
Yeah.
response did you have?
Oh, we got, I think it was into the tens of thousands of responses.
Yeah, as a proportion of the population
Then
of
tell
this
Porky,
region.
Phil.
But that's why, I'll just ignore that guy there, he's not very polite. That's why we went out and did it, independent polling through Colmar Brunton to give us a cross section.
Principle is
No,
the
but-
same.
but hang on.
Regardless of whether or not,
No,
Phil,
it's-
you had a
it's not.
small group of people saying it's okay.
Yeah.
You still managed to
No,
keep rates
no,
down
no.
by introducing
No,
levies
no,
elsewhere.
let me correct you on two fronts. First of all, the poll that we did, and you can go and talk to the people who did it, is representative of a cross-section of what Aucklanders think. So it's not a small group. That's why we did the polling. Secondly, he talks about stealth. We did it publicly and we advertised it. We went out and talked at have your say meetings, etc. Thirdly,
And then you ran
the
it through.
net impact of both the
What is it?
environment targeted rate and the water quality
Yeah, there it
targeted
is there.
rate was less than the interim transport levy that I took off, which was $114
Well, look,
a year.
here's my present rate bill,
Yeah.
right? Present
Yeah,
rate bill.
why have you got that?
Yeah, well, I've got that because there's eight.
'cause he doesn't want to
There's
pay it.
8 taxes here.
Yeah.
4 being brought in by him. If you look, and when everyone gets a rate bill in this city, what you do is you look at the bottom number, you feel the pain, you punch it in, and then you push the pin.
Yeah.
Here's the problem: I really welcome all Aucklanders looking at their rates bill. There are 8 taxes in the city. 4 have been brought in by this mayor, and the problem is this: he talks about the rates, and he talks about my reducing the equity in water care. We're maxed out on the balance sheet, so we need to rebuild the financial accounts in the city.
You know how we got to where we are right now?
How?
I asked you a question. What's going to be your rates increase?
I've told you that I'll be announcing it next week.
JT, Ihumātao, park or houses?
My own view on that is that there's a elegant decision to be made on behalf of all New Zealanders, not just Māori, but all New Zealanders, and that conversation's on. I was down at the Koronehan down in the Waikato on Monday and Tuesday, privy to all those negotiations. I agree, this is the only thing I'd ever agree with Gough on, is that a compromise decision can be made if enough heads get around the table to sort it out.
Yep. So what would you rather have there, a park or houses?
My own preference, personally,
Yes.
would be a park. And why
The
is
iwi
that?
wants houses. They can't live on a park.
No, what you don't know about me is that we develop houses. We're building 120 in Great North Road right now. 120 houses to be delivered this year, more than Gough and Twyford put together.
Well, that's not
But
true.
You're going to give some to the iwi as compensation for losing those 40
to one
houses.
side. No, I know exactly where other lands are over there in terms of building houses. You don't run over the top of your heritage estates all the time if there are options outside that.
Phil, what do you say? Houses or a park?
Well, he's moved houses.
I've actually already delivered, because last week at council we've turned a 8.9 hectare block of land right next to the disputed land into public open space, having previously had it zoned as future urban development. We've also got a 92 hectare park, which is all of the key heritage features, Otuatawa, stone fields, and we are going to develop that. So there's over 100 hectares of parkland in that area, because it is an important
And
area.
what does that all mean?
And the question of housing is an interesting one. First of all, I'm not going to presume to tell the mana whenua leaders, or the protest group for that matter, where their compromise lies. But you could conceive of a situation where you develop further your parkland, but you also develop papakainga housing that is in keeping with the nature of the Ihumātao village, which has been continuously inhabited for 800 years. That might be a really good solution, but that's for the people to come back and tell us about, not for me to try to impose on them as a suggested solution.
Sandra has a question. Hi, this is for you, JT. I haven't had a pay rise for 10 years, but all mayors increased their pay packets. Are you willing to take a pay cut and freeze pays until Auckland is sorted out?
I will make an announcement on that, as well as the rates, next week. Now, because I've got a campaign and I'm in the middle of a campaign, I've got some major policy to announce, and I don't intend to disclose that until the middle of next week.
What do you say, Phil?
Well, he's promising I've already delivered. I've saved the council hundreds of thousands of dollars by being the first mayor in this city to give up a chauffeur-driven car and the 2 chauffeurs, to get a modest electric car.
Who bought that? Who bought that car?
That's a council car, of course.
Oh, okay.
It replaced a big SUV that was much more expensive. If you look at my travel bill, if you look at my taxi bill, it'll be the lowest in not only the history of the super city, which is only 9 years old, but actually take Auckland City back as long as you want to go, and you'll find that I have been more thrifty, more concerned about the impact of costs on the ratepayer than any previous mayor.
Okay. Question from Alan. This is to you, JT. As a mayor, what would you do to change the culture, reduce red tape, and get consents issued quickly and cost effectively?
There's two issues there. The first is that the culture in the city of regulators is just applied in an arrogant way. It's okay to have regulation, but you can't have regulators going out there tripping people up and sending them to the back of the queue on the 21-day turnstile, right? That's point one. Point two, at the moment, central government, it always keeps coming back to this, and you need to sort of, all Aucklanders have to wake up. Everywhere we go, a lot of solutions lay with Wellington, and you need some strong leadership here, and I keep saying that, and we'll keep coming back to it. The Resource Management Act and a number of other matters will require change. And
You're going to have to lobby for it.
Well, I'm going to have to lobby for the full reset of the 2009 legislation because it's left a terrible legacy for us.
All right, to wrap it up, I would like to know where you guys each see Auckland going in the future. So, Phil, can I start with you? If you could think of any city in the world that you've been to that you would like Auckland to most emulate in years to come, what would it be?
I think it's cities like Vancouver, like Portland in Oregon, probably like parts of Melbourne and Brisbane. I think they're great role models. Where do I want it to go? I want this to be a world-class city. I want it to have an environment that we value and we enhance and we protect, and a lot of my policies have delivered on that already. I want it to be a city where it's easier for people to get around, which is why we've put so much emphasis on that extra investment in transport. And I want it to be a place where housing again becomes affordable and we deal with the housing shortage. And we've delivered a lot on that. You were talking about consents before, 14,000 consents, and we're now delivering them 84% within 20 days. It was last year about 62%.
So if you could be
The
remembered
one you live
for-
in, but you just won't own up to the fact that this is a great city to live in.
If you could have one legacy item
Yeah.
that people remembered you for, what would it be?
I think one of the things will be to clean up our beaches so that wastewater stops flowing onto it. So we leave a great legacy for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to
Okay,
come.
JT, what city would you like Auckland to most emulate?
Melbourne.
Why?
Oh, look, it's just an outstandingly managed city. It's a world-renowned city. In fact, probably one of the most renowned cities in the whole of Australia from an international perspective on many measures. So I quite like that. Phil's mentioned a whole range of others. But the best thing I like about Auckland is let's just determine our own mana in Auckland. And look, when God made it, He had a great day, right? We all accept that. The majesty of our mountains, the outstanding nature and power of the seas that surround us have done a marvellous job. So the architecture's in place. We just don't need mayors like Phil Goff to bugger it up.
So what would your legacy be if you could be remembered for one?
Leaving and accelerating cleaning the beaches up, and that is part of my water care. No, and then secondly, ensuring that there is an appropriate transport response to gridlock and getting people to use multiple different options.
I get the feeling you guys don't actually dislike each other as much as you pretend to.
Well, he's always tried to be my prefect, you see, that's the problem.
Thank you both.
He takes a lot of looking after, actually.
It's been great to have you both.
He's always getting into trouble. I try to keep him out of it, but
Yeah, I'm sure
sometimes
you
I
do.
don't succeed.
All right, that brings us to the end of our debate tonight. Thank you to Phil Goff and John Tamahere, of course, for taking part. If you want to know more, you can find the names of all the candidates for Mayor and Council at voteauckland.co.nz. That website again, voteauckland.co.nz. Don't go away, because after this short break I'll be talking to Herald journalists Simon Wilson and Bernard Orsman for their thoughts on the debate, and we will be back in just a few minutes. Hey, welcome back to the New Zealand Herald News Talk ZB Auckland mayoral debate, live from the NZME newsroom in Auckland. We've just heard, of course, from the Mayor of Auckland, Phil Goff, and his main challenger, John Tamahere. And I'm joined now by Herald journalists Simon Wilson and Bernard Orsman for their reaction. Hello, you two. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Right, Simon, let's start with you. I hate doing this. I'm going to do it to you anyway. Who won it?
Who won it? I don't know that you can call a clear winner.
Really?
I think it's really interesting. The two of them, when they get together, they try to be civil for a bit, and each of them loses his temper with the other, and that's hard to make play well for you. But they both did it. They're both determined to say that's not true. Well, Goff's determined to say that's not true, and Tamahere's determined to say, let me finish and let me give out my next big idea.
Okay, what did you think, Bernard? Who would you call it for if you had to?
Well, I think possibly I'd call it for Goff. I
Really?
thought that he was really aggressive tonight. He didn't back down at all. He constantly got stuck into Tamahere about whether he was being truthful. Accused him of making stuff up, talked about pixie dust, and yeah, I thought I'd give it to Goff on that count.
That going at him on being truthful is something that he's been starting to develop over the campaign, but I haven't seen him do it so consistently, so frequently
Right.
before.
I got the impression from JT, and this is something that's developed as well throughout the campaign, is big ideas, right? Kind of crazy ideas that you don't think can actually happen. But apart from that, he's nothing more than a spoiler.
Do you think he answered a single question you asked him?
I don't know, were you keeping track?
I was, and he kept saying, I'm going to give you the answer, but I don't think he did.
Okay, so what do you think, Bernard? None of his ideas, I mean, I'm not really sure if Aucklanders are looking at his ideas and going, oh yes, I totally can see a super bridge being built.
Well, I don't know about that, but he keeps on going on about, I'm going to go down to Wellington, I'm going to bang my fist on the table, and I'm going to deliver for Auckland. Well, and Goff says, well, that's, you can't do it that way, and I can't see how going down to Wellington and banging your fist on the table is going to deliver anything
I'm not
Auckland.
convinced that Tamahere really wants us to believe in each individual idea. I think what he wants us to believe in is that he's a man of action, he's decisive, he's going to be lively, he's going to be provocative to government, but he's the kind of personality who can get things done, and he wants us to believe that Goff is not that
So it's more about kind of the perception of him as a holistic, as a whole
If you like,
package, right?
It's the personality. Yes.
Okay. Do you think, Bernard, that there is any chance that there might be frustration with the government and the lack of action on a lot of their big projects that may actually be meted out to Phil Goff?
Well, I mean, they have been quite slow on a number of projects, particularly light rail. They've talked about it, they've talked big on it, and progress has been really slow. The Wellington-Auckland relationship, particularly when it comes to transport, it's just not delivering at this stage.
Is that why that message keeps getting hammered by John Tamahere that Phil Goff is a lapdog? Because nothing is happening there on the transport
Well, I
front?
think it's partly that, but also the fact that he's an ex-Labour minister. He was very senior in the Labour government. And it's an easy sort of line to sort of throw into the mix.
I'm not sure it even matters. Goff is quite right. The $9 billion extra expenditure on transport is a record. There are so many things that are happening, but for Tamahere's message to stick, that he's the decisive guy, he's the kind of guy we need, he needs also to be able to say that Goff is ineffective, that he is a lapdog. So it's not really about the facts, it's about the perception. Perception is reality in politics.
Absolutely. Did any of what John had to say about transport capture you? Did you think, yep, that sounds like a great idea?
To be frank, no.
Did anything that he say capture you? Just anything across any portfolio?
I'm really struggling to get a grasp on that, because I've been, following him now right from the start of the campaign, and each time he says something and you think, oh, that sounds like it might be interesting, and then he starts to talk about it and you think, actually that bridge idea, that's just nuts. That isn't going to be able to work the way he says it's going to work. And he released all his transport policy today. And so many things in it where there are billions and billions of dollars that are going to be spent doing things that just are going to take years and years and years if they work at all. They're going to undo a whole lot of other things, and they're going to create a kind of chaos for years while those things get sorted out. It's not a way to build on how we're working.
Bernard, do you think that it's fair to hammer Gough on the stealth taxes? I mean, he has managed to keep rates low by having all these other levies.
I think it is in some ways, because I think this is one area where Gough is vulnerable. I mean, he has introduced new taxes. He has kept rates to 2.5%, but I think there's a perception out there that rates have gone up by considerably more than 2.5% over the last 3 years, and it's a weak point for Gough, and Tamahere's just sort of hammering it home as much as he can.
Yeah.
Gough is right that the consultation was wide and it was strongly supported, but of course he didn't ask everybody, so there will always be people who go, well, I wasn't asked, and so on. But and he's also right that our rates, even if you add in those extra taxes, rates in Auckland are increasing at a lower rate than most other big cities. Hamilton has 9.7%.
Yes.
Dunedin has 7.8%. You know, we're
But
way
we have a
below
regional
those.
fuel tax.
Well, yes, we do. Though, weirdly, Auckland doesn't seem to be paying it because the fuel companies are spreading that around the country,
Fair enough.
which is outrageous.
Watercare, Bernard, do you think that, is Gough right to say that if Watercare is partially privatised, our water bills will go up?
Well, look, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where he gets those figures from. I think he's right to say that if it is privatised, then water bills will go up. But also, Gough has been open to the idea of what's been called a toilet tax, and that could lead to higher water prices as well, although he seems to be backing away from that now. So,
you think water bills will go up?
Yes, and the argument about Watercare is that it's not allowed by law to pay a dividend. So anyone who wanted to buy part of Watercare would be wanting to make profit out of it, which means you'd have to change that. And where is that money going to come from? Well, it can either come from increased prices, or it can come from making the organisation much more efficient. According to the Auditor General and others who look at these things, Watercare is not an inefficient organisation. So it looks like it is prices.
And again, it's another issue where it would require a change of legislation. So he'd have to go down to Wellington, he'd have to ask the government to change the legislation to do all of these things. And
so much of what he wants to do requires a change of legislation. Sacking the AT board requires a change of legislation. So the thing is, I'll go back to you.
I don't know if it does.
Does it not?
Well, I think if the Mayor of Auckland didn't have confidence in the Board of Water of Auckland Transport, I think it'd be untenable for them to stay in the job.
Right. So he might not need a legislative change for that. That's a good thing to know. But Simon, I wanted to come to you on this one. So much of what he wants to do, looking at the bridge, etc., does require a good relationship with central government. I'm not really sure that they will be incentivised to help him.
I don't think they'll be incentivised very much at all, because what he's asking them for is billions of extra dollars. And as various government ministers have said, you're suggesting that the rest of the country should pay more for Auckland. Well, they're not going to wear that. And it's all very well for Tamahere to say, look, there's a third of the country going to be voting in the election next year. Actually, John, 2/3 are not going to be Aucklanders voting in the election. The rest of the country is going to have a big say. It's always been a big issue for Auckland, so there's a real problem there.
I want a bit of an insight, Bernard, into their relationship with each other, because they go at each other pretty hard.
They
but
do.
It doesn't look like they actually really dislike each other. What do you think?
Oh, look, I don't think there's any personal animosity between the pair of them. They've both been members of the Labour Party. They both know how the game's played. I don't think there's any real bad blood there.
Yeah. Would you go for the Trump-Clinton analogy, Simon? Would you say
I think it holds very much.
JT's Trump, Phil Gough is
I do
Clinton?
think so. We're not meant to listen closely to what he's saying, but we're meant to get the sense that he's our guy and he's good. You know, when they ended, and JT said, Gough, you were like the prefect at school. And Gough actually backed that up. He said, you know, you're the guy's quite hard to keep under control. And it's like, okay, so we're playing to that idea that I'm the outsider, I'm the rebel, and everyone who feels they've been hard done by, your rates bill is the highest bill you have to pay. So everybody feels that. Everyone who feels they're hard done by, JT wants you to go, I'm your guy. And Gough wants you to go, if you want a properly organised city, then I'm your guy. Those things are tricky.
So I want to get from each of you an idea of how you think this race is shaping up, and to buy you some time so you can formulate thoughts. I'll give you what it looks like to me. It looks to me like it's a gamble versus the status quo, right? You've got these big ideas from John Tamahere. You've no idea if they're really going to work or not, but you're so frustrated you're prepared to take the gamble. Whereas with with Phil Goff. It's incremental change. It's going to be slow. You're going to be stuck with congestion for a while. Things are just going to improve over time. Seems to me status quo versus a gamble. How do you see it? We'll start with you, Bernard.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. I think Goff is a safe pair of hands. He's never going to be a popular mayor. He's never going to be a colourful mayor like Tim Shabbat or anything like that. But you know, he's very experienced.
Yeah.
He has delivered on issues of transport. Housing's improved since he's been in office, and his weak point has been governance and democracy. But overall, I think he's done a pretty fair job. Tamihere, well, he is a gamble.
Could be great. It could also be awful.
but I think one of the big questions in this election is where are centre-right voters going to exercise their vote?
Yes.
Are they going to cross over to John Tamihere?
Because they hate Labour or whatever.
Because they hate Labour. There's Christine Fletcher there. The numbers are that Goff had 187,000 votes last time. The centre-right got about 110,000. Tamihere has to find another 40,000 votes somewhere, and quite frankly, it's hard to see where he's going to get those votes from.
The centre-right is interesting in this because they appear to be split. There are some leading members of the Communities and Residents grouping, which is the National Party at home, who don't support Tamihere, and that's pretty clear, and there are some like Christine Fletcher who do. So they're playing that both ways, and that's kind of interesting in itself. I think there's an underlying issue here, and that is that Goff is, as you say, the status quo candidate, but the status quo is a change. We're changing towards more public transport, we're changing towards safer roads, we're changing towards more dense housing, but those changes are slow and they take time. No one's going to solve, neither of them or anyone else is going to solve congestion overnight. It's going to take a long time. That's really frustrating for people.
Yes.
It's not that anyone really believes it can be solved overnight, but people are just frustrated anyway. So the question is, will they be able to trust that Goff is moving in the right direction towards fixing it, or will they feel actually he hasn't grasped it properly?
How much of that frustration? How much of that frustration can Tamihere capitalise on? Hey, thank you both of you. It's great to talk to you. So that's all we've got time for tonight. If you'd like to know more, we will have full coverage of the debate in the Herald tonight and tomorrow, and in News Talk ZB News tomorrow morning. Until then, thanks for watching and good night.